Hello, so my name is Sarah and today I will be sharing my teaching demo. So for my topic, I chose character traits versus characterization. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my lesson plan. So for my lesson plan, I have, as I just mentioned, my topic is character traits versus characterization in a text. The grade level I will be targeting is 3rd grade. My lesson duration is about 65 minutes. We're aiming 65 minutes. Our tools and materials needed, so we will need a copy of a short story named The Tale of Lily and Ben. Which any of these copies can be are going to be available both paper copies or through digital through the iPad, just to keep that in mind. Copies of direct and the next copy is a copy of direct and indirect characterization worksheet. Writing tools, so if they do use paper copies, a pencil would be good, a highlighter, or a marker. Also, character trait graphic organizer handout, so it's just a list. Also, a projector and screen, that's a tool that I can use, which I would use for this lesson. Also, the electronic device like an iPad, all students will be using or will have an iPad available to them. And last but not least, the AI Teaching Assistant Pro tool, which is the tool we're going to be using where we're going to be integrating our idea. So for learning goals and objective, the learning goal is a California standard, so I tried to stick to something that is relevant right now to 3rd grade. So the goal is to describe characters in a story, their traits, motivations, or feelings, and explain how their actions contribute to a sequence of events. So it's showing how character traits and how an author talks about or writes about a character, how it will affect the events in the story. So the objectives and that we have in order to reach our goal is, first, students will be able to understand the difference between character traits and characterization and be able to identify and describe them in a text. So again, we're using stories, we're using short excerpts, so that's how we will evaluate the differences. Next is students will be able to distinguish direct and indirect characterization in a text. Again, through a worksheet, they will be working and seeing or writing their own or identifying direct and indirect characterizations through a worksheet. Next one is students will be able to analyze how particular lines of dialogue or incidents in a story reveal aspects of a character's traits. So if there's certain character traits, how does that, or if the author is writing about a character in a certain way, it's describing him in a certain manner, how does that reveal a characteristic, like a trait of the character? Now, last but not least, students will be able to assess their knowledge on the notion of character traits and characterization through an AI tool that evaluates their question. So this question will be submitted and they will get a response, an evaluation based on a rubric that will help them see where they land or the level of understanding based off of this topic. So getting into the lesson, so I have allocated 5 minutes to an intro where I would like to hook my students. Start off with some questions, discussing any favorite characters of movies, TV shows, or books, and just start digging into those traits that we'll be looking at further into the lesson. So after that, we will go into direct instruction. That would be for about 15 minutes. This is where I will be defining and giving examples. So I'll just go through this fairly quickly. So I'll define character traits. I'll define characterization. I'll define direct and indirect characterization. And once again, as I'm defining these, I will also be providing examples. The next part is guided practice. So this practice will be both independent, and with my help, and also with the help of their peers. So the first part will be the read aloud part. We'll read the story together. I'll be reading it out loud to the class, and as I'm reading, I will make sure to be thinking out loud, getting their brain started on thinking of how they can identify characteristic traits and characterization, and how they can just see it, and as I'm thinking out loud, they can kind of like visualize it as well. So and after that, I would do a group activity. Once they have read the story with me, we highlighted, we talked about it, but like not very deeply. I want them to go into groups, and in that group, they will all receive a sheet that has characteristic traits. That sheet is there to help them to kind of see the traits and help them identify which one of these traits are relevant to this character or the characters in the story. So they will all get a list, and then they will discuss. They'll discuss how the author reveals characterization in the story. So this will be a group activity, and one student will share. After that, I have 10 minutes allocated for independent practice. This is where I want the students to use this time to kind of review, refresh, and in a way relearn independently what we just talked about, what we just learned, what we just hit on what the topics. So the worksheet that I will have is a direct and indirect worksheet based off the characterization. So they will work on it independently, but we will also have some time to review it. Next, we will have the closing section of our lesson. So this closing section is primarily focused on the exit ticket, which is where we bring in our AI tool. So this AI tool is going to be used by the students as they write their question based on the topic, which was character traits and characterization. It could be anything. It can hit anything along what we just spoke about, like around that range of the topic. So I just asked them to make a question that has critical thinking, that has a high level of analysis that shows that they have understood the topic. At the end, I will gather a couple examples and discuss it as a class. And it can be anonymous, or it can have the student's name if they like to be shared. We'll just finish with some final thoughts. And the tool, like I said, that we're using is the Ask Smile tool. So this tool will be used to help both the educator and the student. And the way it helps both of them is for them to both see and analyze the level of understanding and the critical thinking of this specific content. So in this tool, the student will produce a question to the best of their ability after the lesson has been wrapped up. The AI tool will give an evaluation of the question asked based on a rubric. So it's level 1 to level 5. Level 1 being a low level and level 5 being high level. So higher level thinking, or higher critical thinking, and then lower critical thinking. So the way the educator will utilize this tool is to generate data. So based off of this, hey, we have 20% in level 5, and that's higher level thinking, and then we have 30% in level 1, and then the rest is in the middle. So it'll give us kind of like, we can make a chart, like a data chart, a bar graph, and show us the results of understanding. So this tool will allow the teacher to receive feedback as well. This is another great component of this tool. So it'll help the teacher get feedback at a manageable and faster rate, which is very valuable in the education setting. As you guys know, it's very fast-paced. Every day it's something new, or we keep moving on, and if we receive this type of feedback, it's very, very valuable. It's resourceful, and it's great. Last but not least, in my lesson plan, I have measurement of student learning outcomes. So these outcomes will primarily be done through an assessment of some sort, like a quiz, a test, an essay, a project. Using the AI tool that we just talked about, it'll help direct the teacher on future lessons, the difficulty of the content, learning targets, and much more. So also in the next class section, based off of the feedback and the analysis made by the teacher from using the Ask tool, and seeing all the students' evaluations, it will be used as a reflection for the next class. So let's get